want you to kind of just, briefly explain in the simplest term
Oh,
to new
yeah.
folks, what the CBA is and what it entails, and how this new CBA and the second apron, specifically, because there's been so many debates and conversations about it.
Yeah.
How has that really affect roster constructions in the league?
Yeah. So so this new CBA started in 2023. Prior to it, so basically the CBAs are almost like the Olympics. They almost like 2017, 2023. The prior year was 2011, probably a little more spaced out. How you should think about the CBA is almost like you're building a house, right? And every time there's a CBA, you're adding a couple rooms. Sometimes it's drastic, sometimes it's minor. The 2023 was kind of in between. There was a period um, with Golden State, the Clippers, Brooklyn, where spending was out of control. Spending to the point where teams were paying hundreds of $1 millions in luxury tax penalties, and there was no restrictions as far as outside of the luxury tax, as far as how you add to your roster. Okay. So what happened with this new CBA is that the league came in and said, you know what, teams can still draft and add and all that. However, we are going to basically, Dan Patrick on a Dan Patrick show asked me about it. Like if you're explaining it to a group of fourth graders, basically it's like instead of having 10 toys, you're going to basically have to pick your 4 favorite toys. So how these rules work is that it allows you to draft. If you draft well and you develop and you make shrewd trades, you'll be able to retain all these players. What it won't allow you to do is go out and if you're a high spending team, go out and add a $20 million player in free agency, or go out and trade for a player and take back more money in a deal. So if you were trading out in the past, if you were trading out a $45 million player, you were going to take back you could take back like a $55 million player, and there was no
Repercussions.
restriction as far as repercussions. Now, based on where you are financially with the apron, that's first and second apron, I guess it's somewhat of a hard cap, I would say. It limits you as far as how you can add to your roster outside of your own players on your team. So when you're Cleveland, okay, who is a second apron team, so they're the highest level. They haven't hard capped themselves because they couldn't, because they, basically are already over this threshold. They can go out and trade for James Harden because guess what? Darius Garland and James Harden make the same amount of money. They can go out and trade for Dennis Schroeder and Keon Ellis because they're sending out more money with DeAndre Hunter. It still allows you to go out and make trades and everything like that, but there's rules that you now have to follow as far as how you go out and add players. If you're Golden State and I want to go out and sign Al Horford, right? This past summer, I can go out and sign Al Horford. I had the tax mid-level exception, which is at 5.8. However, if you use that roster resource, now you are going to be hard capped at the second apron, and you're going to be limited as far as what else you can add to your roster here. It has certainly balanced out spending. I would debate the person who says it's basically is curb spending. Spending is up from last year. I think last year we spent $5.3 billion in player salaries. This year is at 5.7. Spending is up. The middle class is better. It's better for them as far as the trade rules are better. They're expanded as far as how much you can take back a player. Like if we were under the old rules, Duncan Robinson wouldn't have been able to go to Detroit and sign and trade. Max Strus wouldn't have been able to go to Cleveland and a sign and trade. All these different rules that would have basically squeezed how trades work wouldn't have been able to happen here. You can debate that the second apron broke up Boston and Milwaukee and Phoenix because of how, Boston had to trade Porzingis, and they traded Holiday, and they let go Cornette and all that stuff. And you can say that's fine. However, I always remind people, like, those teams went out and made those moves before these new rules started to apply, before these restrictions really started to hurt. I look at Boston right now. They went from $511 million in payroll to $190 million. They're still a pretty good team.
Indeed.
It makes you really put a focus on your scouting department. It makes you got to draft well. Hugo Gonzalez, who they picked in the 20s, right? You see him come off the bench. Luca Garza, who was a minimum player. Neemias Queta, who was a two-way player. Like, it makes you really have to go out and land those under-the-radar free agents. Now, how the apron hurts and how the apron bites you is if you're Phoenix a couple years ago, where you've got Durant and you've got Booker and you've got Beal and you've got no draft picks and you're basically turning over the minimums every year, right? You just keep on doing it and you don't have draft picks. The interesting team that will follow is what will happen with Oklahoma City, right? Like when Oklahoma City goes out and pays Shea, who Supermax will kick in 2 years, and Chet and Jalen, who are on rookie max extensions, who start next year. They're a second apron team. Now, why Oklahoma City is different, they got all these draft picks. They can continue. They might have 3 first-round picks. They just traded for Jared McCain. Now, will they have to make I know for a Sixer fan that hurts. Will they have to make hard decisions with Isaiah Hartenstein or Lou Dort or some of those things, right? But I always say, I wrote about it in the summer. I said, well, you realize like there was two iterations of those Bulls teams in the 90s. Like like Jordan and Pippen stayed through the 6 championships, but there was 2 different groups in it, from the 90 to 93 team and 5 to 97 team. Like those. So yeah, you'll have to make some decisions there, but I like the apron just because it's really leveled the playing field and everything. There's some things I tweak certainly here. I understand that people say, well, wait a minute, there's a hard cap and it's limiting spending. What happens is every year is that 60 players get drafted and 60 veterans are going to be looking for a job. Unless we get expansion and we basically expand the player pool, there's always going to be a squeeze on players kind of looking for jobs.